Okay, so let's start with the first one. So essentially, for the first question, it asks for how many significant figures are there in your following numbers. So when we talk about significant figures, usually it pertains to measured quantities. That's why if you have noticed here, this is actual measurement. So for the first one, this one contains 4 significant figures. Okay, so the zeros here is in between a non-zero, wherein all non-zeros are significant. Okay, and for letter B, the difference with this one is that you don't have a number in front, which is a significant number, or it could be 1, 2, 3 in front, but you just have 0.00. These are leading zeros, so therefore all of these 3 in front are insignificant. So the significant figure here is just 4 and 8, so it would contain 2 significant figures. Okay, now for letter C, in this particular case, you have a decimal point here, and then you have the zeros. If you have that particular case, the zeros at the after your decimal point, since in front of your decimal point is a non-zero number, all of the zeros here could be counted as significant. So therefore, that is 3, and then plus 1, 1, so that's 2 more. So that gives you 5 significant figures. And for letter D, if you'll be encountering a particular measurement expressed in scientific notation, you just have to take note of the M. So this is where your just base your SF here. So just on the value of your M. Don't mind about times 10. You might be, for the 10 here, you might be thinking, oh, that is just one figs. But then again, it's a value of M that you're going to base your significant figures. So that should be 1, 2, and 3. So this should be 3 significant figures. Okay, any questions with number 1? All good? So can we move on to number 2? Okay, number 2, you don't have to memorize I will not ask you to memorize the prefix table. So I'll be giving you the prefix table for that. Okay, so all you need to do is, if we want to convert, so this is just the same thing as conversion. So this is just conversion part, conversion of units. And again, if we want to convert something, we just have to remember our general diagram. What we have, we multiply it with the conversion factor, wherein in your conversion factor, the denominator is whatever unit of what you have, and the numerator would contain the unit of what you want. Okay, so we just have to generally, it's helpful to remember this one here. This is not part of your I will not be giving you this. This is just some sort of a guide. What I've given you would be the different prefixes and the corresponding multiplier. Okay, so don't worry about that much. You'll be given that particular prefix table. So this is asking 42 milligrams to megagram. So there's a difference between a small letter M and capital M. So if you are used to just like in my case, I usually write my letters in uppercase. But in dealing with this one, make sure that you're gonna distinguish a small letter and a capital letter, because they're different for the different prefixes. Okay, so just make sure, just even for this part here, because a capital M pertains to mega, a small m is milli. So just take note of that. So I'm gonna start. Well, in this particular case here, I have milligram to megagram. However, with my prefix table, I don't have a direct conversion between milligram and megagram. I don't have that particular direct conversion. However, if you can see here, the common unit of the two is grams. Okay, so grams is your base unit in this particular case. When you say, well, just think of the unit that doesn't contain a prefix. So that's, in this particular case, it's the gram. Okay, so remember that in our metric system, your unit could only have one letter usually, or if you have two letters, the first letter will always be your prefix. So sometimes it's helpful to map out your on what you do. So first you have milligram, but I can convert it first to grams and then to megagram. So this is my roadmap. So from milligram to megagram, again, I cannot do that in this particular case because I don't have a direct conversion factor. Okay, I cannot have this one here. This is my conversion factor. Remember, this is your conversion factor. So that's my conversion factor. So I don't have a direct conversion between milligram and megagram. So therefore, I need to go from milligram to gram and from gram to megagram, because I know the values of the prefixes or the multiplier of the different prefixes. So I'm gonna start first with 42 milligram. Then I'm gonna multiply that one with my conversion factor. Again, if you go back here, this is have and have. So the meaning of that one is whatever is my unit of the given unit, that's the unit that I will also write in the denominator, milligram. And again, if you can see, I'm going from milligram to gram. So that means that the top part of my conversion factor should be in gram because I want to convert it to gram. But now, for the corresponding value, well, you just have to go and look at your prefix table. Remember that this is just 1 milligram. So 1 milligram, well, milli means 10 to the power of -3. Okay? So I just replace my milli with a multiplier. And again, you can find that one in the table. So if you're going to look at the table there, you have milli, and then the symbol is m, and then the multiplier is 10 to the power of -3. Or that is, I think what I've given you is the chart. So that is just the same thing. Milli, the multiplier is 10 to the power of -3. So if I'm going to multiply that, remember that this is canceled off. So now the remaining unit is gram. However, my final unit should be in megagram. So that means that I still have to multiply this by another conversion factor, wherein this time, if you can see, you will take this one as your now the unit that you have. So therefore, the unit that will be placed in the denominator should be your gram. Okay, again, the reason for that is the unit that I have, and then the unit that I want is megagram. So megagram. So always start with that. Don't place the corresponding value when you try to do your conversion factor. So in identifying the conversion factor, do the placement first. What is the unit at the bottom and the unit on top? The unit of the bottom should be the same as the unit of your original or the given unit. So now you go to the conversion, the value itself. So again, I'm just gonna place 1 megagram. So always with the value of your, well, in the conversion factor wherein it contains the prefix, you just placed 1 there. And then replace the mega with the multiplier. And mega means 10 to the power of 6. So that means that I'm just replacing my mega with 10 to the power of 6. And again, that is given in your chart. That should be in your chart. Mega is 10 to the power of 6. And now, if you're going to multiply that, gram will be canceled out because gram over gram will give you just 1. Or essentially, that particular unit is gone. So the remaining unit is megagram. So now, with the use of your calculator, just multiply everything on top and then divide it with the product of whatever is in your denominator. So the answer should give you 4.2 times 10 to the power of -8 megagram. So the final unit is megagram. So if you can see here, the value of m is just coming from the value of 42 here. Essentially, what changes here is just the placement of your decimal point. So this becomes 0.000 something, 42 megagram, or in scientific notation, that is given by that. And remember that the final answer is the same thing as the number of significant figures of your original given. Okay, so let's do letter B. So I always start with a roadmap. Again, it's just much easier for me to see what will I do. Well, the original unit has 2 letters. So that means that the first letter is my prefix. And the final unit that I want has 2 letters also. So that means that the first letter here, C, pertains to a prefix, which is centi. So this symbol here is micro, that's microsecond to centisecond. So my roadmap, again, I don't have any direct conversion from micro to centisecond. So what I'm gonna do first, since they have a common base unit of second, so microsecond to second and then to centisecond. So that is my roadmap. That means that I will convert first from microsecond to second and from second to centisecond. And again, why is it that I can do that? The reason for being is I have my prefix table. Remember that the base unit doesn't have any prefix, and again, the multiplier of that one is just 10 to the power of 0, or just 1. Okay, so now I'm gonna start with my given. It's 1.38 times 10 to the power of -4 microsecond. Now, the first step is from micro to second. So that's the first step. So that means that I will convert my microsecond to second. So following the same diagram, have times 1 over have. So I'm going to take note of the unit of what I have. It's microsecond. So again, do the placement first. Microsecond should be at the bottom, and then I want second, so second should be on top. That's the first thing that you do. And then take note of the now the value itself, the conversion factor. Well, 1 microsecond is just equivalent to, you try to look at your table, the multiplier of micro is 10 to the power of -6. Okay, so again, if you can see, I just replace my micro with 10 to the power of 6. 10 to the power of -6 means micro. So if I'm gonna multiply the two, this should cancel out microsecond, and I get second as my unit. However, I want my unit to be centisecond. So that's my next step, from second to centisecond. So this time, I'm gonna look at the conversion factor of centisecond and second. But for the placement, again, in your conversion factor, the bottom part should have the same unit as my given unit. So again, if you're gonna multiply these two, it gives you second as your result. Microsecond is now taken off. Okay, it's being canceled off. So second at the bottom, and then centisecond on top. And again, for the values itself, centi means 10 to the power of -2. Kindly check. I think it should be 10 to the -2. Okay. So again, what I did here is centi means 10 to the power of -2. So if I have that one in my table, it's just easier to again, to replace that. Indeed, 1 centisecond is just equivalent to 10 to the power of -2 second. Okay. So now, if I'm gonna multiply the two, second is canceled out. The final unit is centisecond. So multiply everything on top, divided it with the value at the bottom. That should give you 1.38. 1.38 times 10 to the power of -8. Then don't forget the final unit, which is centisecond. So for letter C, you have joule to kilojoule. So for the first unit here, it only contains one letter. So it must be your base unit. Okay? You don't have any prefix. So therefore, in this case, no prefix, because there's only one letter in your unit. Okay? So therefore, in this particular case, you just go directly from joule to kilojoule. So just write the given value, 480, and then joule multiplied by. So for your conversion factor, again, the first thing that you need to do is try to do the placement of your units. Since the given is joule, joule must be at the bottom. And then to kilojoule, that should be on top. Okay, so if I'm gonna have my conversion factor, 1 kilojoule is just 10 to the power of 3 joules. So again, kilo is 10 to the power of 3. And then if I'm gonna multiply the two, joule is canceled off. So final answer would be, if you're gonna do that one in your calculator, that should give you 3.480. Again, I'm taking note of the same number of significant digits of my original given. So the 0 after here is considered significant, so that is part of my final answer. And it is kilojoule. Okay. So if you're gonna do this one in your calculator, you might get, let's say, 34.8 times 10 to the power of, this is just the same thing as the power of -7 or something like that. If you will get that particular answer, you need to change it in the standard form. Standard, I mean, in scientific notation, the correct scientific notation form. Correct scientific notation form. And for letter D, this is from kilogram to gram. So both contains two letters. So that means that I cannot go directly from kilogram to milligram. So what will I do is that I'm gonna map it out, that I will convert first from kilogram to gram, and then from gram to milligram. Okay, so I'm gonna do these steps. First is from kilogram to gram, and then from gram to milligram. So I'm gonna start with, again, with my given 3,63121 kilogram, and then multiplied by the conversion factor. Again, first step is kilogram to gram. So I'm gonna write my kilogram at the bottom and gram on top, because again, the unit that I have is kilogram. So the bottom unit should be in kilogram. And then I just place 1 there. Again, always the case for the part in your conversion factor that contains the prefix, the value there, just place 1. And then the value that is equivalent to that would be coming from your table. This is 10 to the power of 3. So 10 to the power of 3 is from your kilo. So this gives me, kilogram is cancelled off. So now this gives me gram. However, I need to convert this further to milligram. So now I'm going to multiply this by the conversion factor of gram at the bottom and then milligram on top. Again, now in this case, the unit that is given to me is already the gram. That's your new unit that you have. So in your conversion factor, gram should be at the bottom and milligram should be on top, the unit that you want in the second step. Now again, for the value itself, just place 1 on top because that's where your unit with the prefix, and then at the bottom, just replace your m with a multiplier. That's 10 to the negative 3. So again, milli is 10 to the power of negative 3. And then if you're going to multiply these two, gram is cancelled out. So final answer should contain the same number of significant digits, but in scientific notation. So this is 6.3121 times 10 to the power of 10 milligram.